Welcome back to part number 6 from the Zorki 3M CLA series. My goal today, or better said for this episode, is to get the rangefinder back on the camera. And no, actually my goal is to kind of finish working on the camera minus maybe the adjustments. But if I move fast enough with this part, I will also do the adjustments for both rangefinder and working distance, and that will be actually the end. Alright, so normally this is super straightforward, you just put it back on the camera, but as I mentioned in the first episode, now this is the diopter adjuster lens and it sits here, so something like this, and it moves back and forth. Now, because if you look at it like this, there is a very small gap. Let me get a pointy thing. So there's a very small gap between this and the base plate, which would be here. See, there's a gap, and that means that this little lens can wobble like this. Now when it wobbles, the entire image shakes in the viewfinder. Now I've seen this in pretty much all Zorki 3s and 4s. I think I only had one that had a shakeless lens from the factory, and I always found it extremely annoying, so I came up with a solution that requires a bit of double-sided tape and a bit of cooking Teflon tape. Alright, so what I'm gonna do is cut a piece of this tape Okay, cut some little slices. Usually 2 are enough, but I've had cases where 3 were needed. And actually tape these little pieces of Teflon, one on top of the other, on this, on the leg of the diopter adjusting lens. Okay, so this is number 1. It doesn't matter how you stick them, as long as the tape covers the entire not leg, foot, like a snail. What does a snail have, a foot or a leg? In Romanian it has picior. Picior means foot. Alright, and another one. Now this is a trial and error. You might need more, you might need less. From my experience, 2 is a good starting point, so I'll just get 2 and see how things go. And now push them down well. First I will trim the excess in a more sloppy manner. Okay, and then I will use a craft knife and try to follow the contour of that piece of metal. make sure you don't put too much pressure on this part, on the lens part, because it's super soft and it might actually break off. Some bits are easier to cut with the scissors. And also make sure you get the access from this little hole or cutout, because that is the cutout that will be engaged by the lever itself. Alright, and now we have an increased thickness for this bottom part. Alright. Obviously now it's time to test the theory. And first of all, I should put this little arm back. It goes here with the scalloped part pointing that way, if I remember correctly. Okay, and make sure the dots align, or the holes. And now you need to get the arm. So the arm has this little piece, and this end of the piece, when the arm is pushed inwards, should move clockwise and should press against this. So it needs to move it forward. So you need to put it like this and then push this arm forward until it snaps into position. So it goes through that hole and then it engages with the end of this adjustment screw. Okay, and now while holding it together, wiggle this piece back and forth until you see that it has engaged with the lens. Okay, and final test is to actually put the screws back, because as long as the whole assembly is not screwed down, it can still wobble a bit. Obviously, if it has zero movement at the end, so it's super tight, you might have actually a very hard time adjusting the diopter. So I will just use 2 screws for the time being. So one will be the rightmost screw and one will be the leftmost screw. But if I remember correctly, one of these screws has a bad thread. I mean, not the screws but the holes. I'll have to see if I have... actually I could... No, I can't. I thought I could use another lens mount screw and retap the hole. So the initial thread is 1.6 millimeters and the lens mount screws are 2 millimeters in diameter, so you need a different tap. But the screws used for the rangefinder have a sunken head, so they are triangular, while the screws used for the lens mount are a flat head, so they sit down on the lens mount. Okay, these two are okay. This barely moves. And in order to actually see an image, you also need this part put back, because this is a lens. So I'll try to attach a couple of screws back. All right, let's see. I also tap the camera while looking through the viewfinder just to see if the image moves, and I also move the rangefinder arm as to, I don't know, simulate the focusing motion, and it's pretty nice. It doesn't move. Very slight wobble when adjusting the diopter, but that's all right. And the diopter adjuster is a bit on the soft side, but nothing too serious. I'm going to take this off again and try to see whether I could have room for one more layer or not. Now the Teflon tape is very thin. It has like 0.04 or 0.08 millimeters in thickness. I can't remember. I did measure it once. So it's very thin, but you need to take into account the thickness of the double side tape, which is actually thicker than that. So I can't push it down. I can only slightly wiggle it left and right. So that tells me that I don't have room for another one. What you could do, but it's kind of too much. You could actually take off whatever you already added here and then sand down this foot to increase the gap so that a third layer of Teflon fits. I would not go as far as doing that. Okay, so I'll consider this a perfectly fine balance. This is one of the weak spots of the design of the camera, because you can easily push the adjustment out of position. But as easy as it is to get out of position, it's just as easy to put it back in position. And one possible option that I honestly haven't tried yet would be to actually add some very thick grease between this part and the inner tube. Oh, now that I am looking at this lever, it has a cutout here. So in theory, you could actually try to crimp it down. To actually increase the friction, but I would have to do it with this piece taken off. It's not bad under any circumstance, so I can leave it like this. Nah, I'm taking it off. I have this issue with trying to get the best possible outcome of any scenario, and sometimes my attempts end up in failure, and well, they count as lessons learned, I suppose. And some other times the results are good and they become kind of routine. So pretty much everything that I tried at some point and worked nicely have become parts of my process of servicing these cameras. I'm sure the Soviets didn't care that adjuster is wobbly or anything like that. Okay, so this right now moves very easily. If I take it out, there is a slit here, one here and one horizontal. So that means I can crimp down these two little edges. I can do it with a pair of pliers, or even better, I could try to use one of Adrian Prada's super nice flexi clamps. Now this is the all steel set, because it has a lot of sizes, and he also has a brass set, but that's double the price. Now I don't use these very often at all, so I decided the more the merrier, and I will try to be careful enough as to not to scratch things that are important. Okay, now let's see approximately what diameter I should use. Oh, I'm out of batteries on this one. So it says 8, I think. Okay, 12, 9.59, 8.5, 8. Ah, it kind of fits. Let's try 7. Seven doesn't fit, so yeah, 8 was the right size, and let's see. Kind of the same. a bit better, but not much. One of the problems is that only these two little bits on top actually are adjustable. So I will try to use some of this super thick grease. I talked about it before. It's from Butter Planetarium. They do all sorts of stuff for astronomy and astrophotography, and this is used for the mounts of the telescopes. So it's super thick Teflon grease. I have it for ever since I started working on cameras, so 1.5, something like that, 1.5 years, and this is the amount that I used. I use it mainly on lenses for the aperture ring, on the clickless aperture ring lenses like the Jupiter 8, pretty much most of the L39 lenses, and I sometimes also use it for things that should move very damp. They should have a very damp feeling to them. And I will use a little bit of the sticky stuff on the inside of this piece and see what happens. Not much. Well, at least now I know. So not much happened. Time to put it back. You can obviously improve in lots of areas on these cameras. Some improvements probably require a lot of work and a lot of resources, like, I don't know, maybe access to CNC machines, 3D printers, and all sorts of other stuff. The question of is it or is it not worth it is obviously important, because from a certain point onwards it's kind of pointless. I mean, at some point you start thinking about the actual economic value or financial value of your work, and obviously the work involved in these cameras is more valuable than the cameras themselves. You can pretty much buy a Zorki 3, which is pretty rare for a Russian camera, from eBay for less than the price or the cost of the servicing itself. And that puts a lot of people down from buying these cameras or from servicing them, because you kind of think, okay, why should I pay 100, 150 dollars, euros, you name your currency, for a camera that is worth 20, 30, 50 maybe? Why should I service my camera when I can just buy another one? Well, I have an answer for that one, and it's very simple. Okay, buy another one and you'll get another one with pretty much the same issues. These are all very old cameras. They all need some love and attention. Now, obviously, probably a good chunk of what I do is useless. So all the polishing, all the, I don't know, millimetric movement of one ribbon or whatever is pointless. It will not have a visible quantifiable result on the end product, and that is the photography. Now obviously if your camera is rough, it's like grinding coffee, it tears up your film or other stuff like that, you'll probably have no enjoyment from using it anyway, so that's not a good thing. On the other hand, a well-serviced Soviet camera of some sorts, not all, but some, and this is one of them. The Zorki 4s are more of a hit or miss kind of camera. So you can get a good copy or you can get a bad copy. A really bad copy, no matter what you do to it, it will still be a bad camera. It will still feel like shit even though maybe it works fine. Okay, so this one is done. Yeah, pretty nice. I also need to get this back. So I have this, and then I have this, and I shouldn't have tossed that greasy bud, because I also like to use some grease on this part. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, Russian cameras that have the potential to be a nice shooter. Well, I will clearly admit that this is the first Zorki 3 that I've worked on, but obviously it's not a big problem since it's a Zorki 4, or the Zorki 4 is a Zorki 3. Okay, I've worked on lots of Zorki 4s. They are nice cameras, not all of them, but most of them are nice cameras. I've worked on Zorki 6 and 5, obviously Fed 2, Fed 1, Zorki 1, Zorki C. Haven't worked on Fed 4 and 5 yet, but I do have a couple of them. And also I haven't worked on Fed 3, which is pretty much a Fed 2 with a slow speed escapement. Okay, I still need to tighten up this. Now, from all these cameras, I would say the one that has the best potential of becoming a really smooth operator is the Fed 2. Because I haven't had one Fed 2 so far that didn't feel at least nice, if not very nice, after I was done with it. Okay, then maybe later models of the Zorki 1. I've had mixed experience or mixed feelings with the Zorki and Fed 1, the early versions. This tree is super nice. I really like it. I'll probably get one for myself. And the rest, the 5 is kind of an ugly duckling. You either like it or you hate it. Alright, no more falling. But yeah, Fed 2, super nice camera. Zorki 4, really nice camera. Zorki 3, you find one, get it, especially if it's for a good price. It is a nice camera. Okay, so I've got that in place. Now I need to get some order in my life. I don't need this one. I don't need this one. I don't need... maybe I need this one and this one. And I don't need this one. Okay. Alright, next step is to get the light baffles back. And this front plate. Alright, so the big one goes on the right side. And this lower part, which is straight, should engage in this lip. So there's a lip on the light shield, and that part needs to kind of swoop in inside that lip. Now, here on top, you have a pin, sort of a pin. It's part of the rangefinder assembly, and it kind of positions the assembly in the correct place. And obviously the pin protrudes a bit into the film chamber, or better said the shutter chamber, and makes this little baffle a bit difficult to put back. But it's a matter of wiggle right, wiggle left until it goes in. And then the stepped baffle goes obviously on the left side. This one should be a bit easier to reposition, alright. And it's in the right position, and then this front plate must go in here. Push down the rangefinder arm, keep it pushed until it clears, and then push the plate in position, and you will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 holes. The outermost 2 holes that align on the same horizontal line, this one and this one, and actually they are the only ones who don't have a sunken profile, so they don't have like an inner lip. So those 2 are for the big screws that go through the body shell. Every other screw is for smaller black screws, and 2 silver screws respectively. The silver screws go here, so the short ones go here on the bottom of the shields. Everything else goes where everything else goes. Now this is a bit more tricky because you kind of need to position the shield so that the holes are aligned. This one seems aligned. We'll see if the screw engages. Alright, one down, that means the other one is almost certainly aligned. Okay, I don't really tighten them very firmly from the beginning. I'm making sure that everything is seated before. Okay, another one, a small one. Now they are smaller because otherwise they would kind of puncture or hit the rollers, the ribbon rollers or the shutter rollers. And now I need to kind of get this one to engage. Now I have the lower hole aligned, and having a bit of tension there, I hope means that the screw will engage. It did, and now I can get a longer one here. Alright. Okay, now tighten all the rest of the screws. Sounds like my neighbors upstairs are moving shit again. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Don't overdo it. This metal is super shady and it might strip. And the last one. Alright. And obviously, after doing that, recheck that the shutter actually works and you did not pinch any ribbon, curtain material, screw, piercing on something, so make sure that everything works. Alright, and then it's time for the actual body shell. That I should clean a bit. Clean a bit again. Alright, this one simply slides over. and it has 3 screws on the back, 2 screws on the front, 2 screws on the front bottom. This is 1, this is 2, one, 2, 3 for the back, 1.5 for the front. One of them is shorter, and if I remember correctly, the short one goes here. I'm not really sure why it's shorter. Come on. Okay, 1. Easy there. All right. And that's about it for the time being. I will need to also clean these, the locking keys. And I'll probably add this as the second part of this video. And then next step, after getting this one done, is to actually get the lens mount back and start calibrating the working distance. The lens mount had no shims, so it was the lens mount straight onto the body, which is not ideal because obviously you can't have perfection. Now, before making any kind of adjustments, I will test this body with the lens it came with, because if for some reason that lens was calibrated for this body, then I will leave it like that, because I have no means of adjusting the lens. Unfortunately, I don't have a lens collimator, so I really don't want to mess things up. That will be my first check. If that check is correct and it confirms that they are a pair, because both camera and lens have a 5.5 in front of them, then that will be that. I don't really care that it won't fit correctly other lenses. My goal is to return the camera to its owner in a fully working state as a pair for the time being. Okay, yeah, see you in the next half of the video, hopefully less than half, when I will deal with this, and then the next video, the last one in the series, will be about final adjustments, final tests, maybe some test images from the test roll film or roll off film. Alright, see you in a GB. And for the second part, we have the locking keys. This one has grinding sound, so there's a lot of dust inside, and this one as well. Okay, I'll only open one on video, and I'll do the other one off video. Okay, so in order to take these apart, so this is lock position or locked position, and this is open position when you can't swing the lock that way. Okay, so when it's in locked position, this part has this semicircle pointing towards the center of the camera. Okay, and in order to take the key off, so the actual key, you need to go halfway, so like this. When it's halfway there, the semicircle points towards the lid, so this curvature and that curvature are aligned, and if you notice, there is an angled profile here. So one side is straight down and the other side is angled at a 45-degree angle. Okay. Also, this little cap beneath has the cutout pointing towards the back. So circle towards the back, cutout towards the back, angled piece towards the back. And if you are lucky, like I am now, you will see this pin protruding here. If you're not lucky, it will be flush. If it's flush, it's a bit tricky to take out. I use this, so it has the ends at an angle, the pointy tips, and I try to get the tip here between this outer element and the key, and kind of point the tip at the hole, because it has one hole here, one hole there, and kind of push, so the little bit a little bit of the locking pin gets out. And then it's a simple matter of just using a pair of pliers to catch the end and pull it out. If the pliers don't have enough grip, what I also found useful, a small screwdriver, put the blade on top of the pin and pry it out. So slowly, but surely the pin will get out until there's enough of it visible so you can pull it out with the pliers. So we have the pin, we have the locking key, this is the profile, so it's straight on one end and at an angle on the other end. Then we have, I think I forgot my tweezers again somewhere. Anyhow, we have this little cap, then a flat washer, a spring washer that is all rusty, and that's it here. And on the other side is the actual locking key that simply drops from the camera. And you can see here a lot of old lubricant, dried obviously, and a lot of the same old lubricant here, and some metal shards, residue, something. Alright, now I will clean everything, so this and this, and I will re-grease this surface because this round surface will come in contact with this area, so that's where the majority of the friction occurs, and also around this shaft or inside this hole. Alright, and hopefully at the end we will have two very smooth locking keys, and that will be pretty much the end of the reassembly phase. I have already adjusted the rangefinder to a certain degree. I will need to recheck it tomorrow when I have enough available light. And in the next episode I will describe the process of calibrating the rangefinder. Meanwhile, I'll need to do a double check. So on one hand I will check the accuracy of the focusing, so I will check the pairing between the body and the lens. So this lens says serial number 5508646 and the body 5503399. So same production year, most likely they came as a pair from the factory. I will check, so first of all I will calibrate the rangefinder, then I will check the accuracy. Nah, I'll explain it next time. It's too much and I will digress, and it's bad for business. So first I will finish this part that will conclude today's episode, and then in the next episode I will describe the process of calibrating the rangefinder. I will then measure the working distance if the calibration is okay. I will check the working distance just for fun, because if the calibration is okay I'm not going to adjust anything at the lens mount, and that will be it. Then I'm gonna pop some film inside and see how the camera is doing. So far so good, it feels nice, it's super smooth, and hopefully everything will go according to plan. Alright, so I will add one more very short bit at the end with the reassembly of one of these keys, just to make sure I've covered everything. And I will also add a link to Thingiverse where you can download the STL file for these little keys in case anybody needs one. Yeah, free for all, and if you want the source code I can somehow send it to you. Maybe you have better ideas, maybe you want to improve on it, whatever whatever you need. Alright, thank you, see you in just a bit, and that will be the end of today's episode. Alright, so the first key is ready. And now for the second key, I left this one to be the second one because I found this. So a copper ring or shim that was here. The other one didn't have it. Now I don't know if it didn't have it because it was lost at some point or simply because this end is the one that holds the cartridge, the film cartridge. I don't know if it's relevant in any way, but doesn't matter, it didn't have it. Okay, so this one is the first to go here. I will still use a bit of grease. Okay, so this one goes down, and I'm going to lubricate this rim. And inside the walls of that hole. All right. This should be the position, so this aligns with the long axis of the back door. And then we have the pressure plate, the spacer or shim, cut out towards the back, pointy thing towards the back. Just a second. Just a second, because I found some traces of rust that I somehow did not see. Okay, and now that everything is aligned, let's see how easy this will go. Take the pin with the pliers, and now you need to get it through everything. Obviously, this is going to resist my attempts. So you kind of need to wiggle it around and all right. It was trickier than I expected, certainly trickier than it should have been. Something is fishy about this key. So this one is normal, it works smoothly, it's nice. The other one, the one with the golden shim, goes a bit more. So see, it's off center for some reason on the open position, so yeah, that's okay. And it's a bit harder to turn. Now, I honestly don't remember how it was before. And even if it was also harder before, I probably didn't notice much because I always assumed that the old lubricant is gone and that's why it's harsh, and that's it. I've got it ready for checking the focus tomorrow. Okay. It closes fine. This one, the tricky one, is a bit harder to close, so it will work fine all the way here to here. And then you need to force it a bit more to close. On one hand, that's a good thing because it will not open by mistake no matter what. On the other hand, it's a bit annoying. But well, in theory, you only open the back twice, once to load it, once to unload it. Alright, the idea was that you have to use a pair of pliers, to jiggle or jiggle, what the hell, to wiggle that pin left and right until it crosses through all layers, so it goes through all the holes. You have one hole here, one hole, the entry hole of the round slotted ornament, then there's another hole in the middle of the key, and then the exit hole of the ornament, and then another hole on the other side of the key. And all of these are the holes that you can see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But there's also a pair of holes in this pin. So the pin at the end is slotted and has a hole from one side to the other. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, almost 7, that you need to align in order to get the pin through. And obviously the pressure washer under here will keep things will try to push things away, so you need to keep pressure from down and from up, and do this while everything remains aligned. It's a bit tricky, so it's not the nicest system, but well, it is what it is. On later cameras, even in some Zorki 4s, come on, okay, they replaced this pin system with a double nut system, so nut and a counter nut, or a locking nut, and it's much nicer. The feds kind of have this system, so even some Fed 2s I think I've seen with screws and nuts. The 5s and so on, doesn't really matter now. Okay, oh, by the way, I tried to take away that golden shim and it became super rough because the surfaces, no matter how much I polished them, they wouldn't really slide one on top of the other nicely. So that's maybe one of the reasons they use the shim, to decrease the friction, because that was copper, and copper is slide friendly. Alright, see you in the last episode where we will talk about the adjustments. Thank you, good night.